It's that time of year again where you're either setting resolutions or you're adversely against them. And instead of being so all or nothing about it, I want to give you some other options. In this video, I'm going to share 7 self-development practices and a bunch of tangential recommendations that aren't resolutions, but still let you capitalize on that fresh start feeling that you get at this time of year. I think it's such a great time of year to focus on self-development practices, not because it's resolution time, but because you can capitalize on that new year energy and motivation, and you have that sort of fresh slate feeling. And it's a great opportunity to bring the focus onto you and your self-development, not people-pleasing and not others' opinions, but actually connecting into what you want to do. Committing to self-development doesn't need to be about this drive to accomplish, but it can be about wanting a new way of being. And this isn't about changing you, this is about changing your operating system. Okay, on to the self-development practices. So I've got a bunch of resources with me and recommendations, but first things first, I want to mention something that's resolutions adjacent that could be something you might want to look into doing, and that's intention setting. But as a perfectionist, you need to do it right. And this isn't really about being fixated on the right way or the wrong way to do it, but inherently a lot of the ways that people set intentions are bound to trigger perfectionism. And so if you do it the right way, you kind of get ahead of that and you're proactive about that, and it's a lot less likely to trigger perfectionism, so then you're actually successful. And so part of the problem with intentions is that they become expectations and they require guilt for you to feel motivated to follow through on them, and they're not actually that meaningful. And so I like to look at intentions as guidelines, not a to-do list. It's so easy for them to become expectations when it's things that you must do, like a bucket list, or things that you really feel like you have to do. Then they become expectations, and it becomes pressure, you need discipline, etc., etc. But when they're guidelines around how you intend to live your life, or how you intend to be, how you intend to operate, that sort of thing, then they're just really useful reminders about how you wanted to spend your time and how you could spend your time and what you could do and what matters to you. So that's why I like to see them as guidelines, not a to-do list. And if you're curious about how to do this, I actually have a free workshop that I ran a few months ago, and I will leave the replay linked down in the description. I go through the whole process of how to set them, and then I leave you with a couple strategies for how to avoid perfectionism from derailing them entirely. So my first couple of practices are like journal-ish. They're around journaling, and if you don't like journaling, that's totally fine. Journaling doesn't have to be writing down things in a notebook. It can be recording a voice note to yourself. It can be just even thinking about the prompt and the practice itself. But I have a couple first that are super low commitment. Okay, so the first one is a gratitude practice. So how I do it is I just have this weekly planner that I write each day things that I'm grateful for on. Last year I did 10 things that I was grateful for. And this year I'm tweaking it a little bit and I'm doing 5 things I'm grateful for. And then I have 2 other prompts in there, signs it's working and a moment of joy from the last 24 hours. So it's a new thing to try for me, but it's a great practice, and having it in a little agenda makes it really simple. You don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't need a gratitude journal. You honestly don't even need an agenda. You can just do it on a piece of paper, do it in your regular journal. But I like this because it keeps it all contained and it helps me remember to actually do it. So the next one is a little bit more involved, but it is doing a 30-day journaling challenge. And I have one that's free on my website. I'll link it down below. These are all the prompts from it. It's just 30 days and there's different themes each week. Why I'm recommending this is because journaling can be such a good habit for perfectionists. It helps you tune into yourself and what you really want. It blocks out the world. It helps you process all the shoulds and all the fears and doubts. And it's just a place where you can be yourself without worrying about judgment and practicing self-compassion and all that. And so I have my journal here. I actually have the printout of the 30 days just in the back of my journal. And I love the 30-day challenge because 30 days is so doable. It's not a whole year. It's not a year of your resolution of doing journaling every day for a year. So doable, but it's also long enough for you to actually figure out if you like it or not. And I think when it comes to perfectionists, we can be so overwhelmed by all the potential prompts out there. We can overthink which ones we should do, which one the right one is to do. We can get really all or nothing about it. So, do 7 days in a row and then you miss a couple days and now you're like totally out. You're not doing it anymore. Or feel like you need to do 10 prompts in a single day and then you get overwhelmed and whatnot. And so I have this challenge set up that it's automated and it's all by email. So you get an email every single day for 30 days. And I do this instead of giving you all the prompts at once, because giving you all the prompts would be great. You go and you do it on day 3. When you don't follow through, you conveniently forget to stop and you don't ever do it again. When you get an email every day, every single day is an opportunity to start it, to pick it back up, to be reminded to do it if you happen to forget. And it keeps the momentum going. So if you'd like to sign up for it, I'll leave the link down in the description. It's totally free, 30-day challenge. And the last journaling one has a lot of journaling elements to it, but it's not technically journaling. And it's something I started in the summer this last year, and it's doing the Artist's Way course. And it's funny because this is older than me, this course, but it's really stood up to the test of time. And honestly, a lot of the journaling and self-development stuff that you hear about these days is really rooted in the stuff from here. And so it's a 12-week course that's in a book, but you also don't need to do it over 12 weeks. It's just 12 different themes, I guess, within it. And so you read about it each week, and then there's a little exercise you do. And if you've ever heard of people talk about doing the morning pages, that's where this comes from. So the stream of consciousness journaling every morning, you do 3 pages and whatnot. I really liked doing this last year. It gave me a lot of inspiration. It also challenged me to connect with a bit more of a spiritual side of myself. I'm not very woo-woo, and so it was a really good challenge to kind of look at that side of myself and what that means to me. I am definitely going to do a whole video on this and all my insights from it and stuff, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron is a great thing to start the new year doing. So these next practices are about specifically addressing perfectionism or something related to perfectionism. And the first thing I recommend is reading a new book. I think it's the best consumption of information style, because I find with podcasts and videos, it's really easy to get into just binging mode, and you're not actually retaining the knowledge necessarily or acting on it, you're just consuming it. Whereas with a book, I feel like you have a bit more control. It's a larger commitment, so you do kind of have to put it down in between reading sessions. And there's a nice defined end to it that usually wraps things up really nicely, so you don't feel that urge to go next episode or next video. And then you also can really easily bookmark it. So midway through reading, if there's something that you feel inspired to go and take action on, or you need to take action on, you can throw your bookmark in it, go and do the thing, and then come back to learning more about it. So none of my recommendations are new books by any means, but they are some of my favorites specifically for perfectionists. So foundational book, Daring Greatly by Brene. She also has a book that she published previously to this called Gifts of Imperfection. I just find this one's a little bit more inspiring, and it's a lot more about vulnerability and courage. So I found for me it inspired action a lot more than the Gifts of Imperfection, but that one's also a good one too. The next one is The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine. You can see I have a lot of thoughts on this one. This is not a new phenomenon at all, but there's a lot of overlap with perfectionists, and I find people don't really talk about it that much, or they talk about it in a way that's not really knowledgeable. So this one's written by Aron, who I believe is a psychologist, and it's also almost 30 years old, so there's probably a newer version. This one's an older edition I have. But it's such a good way to just get to know yourself better. When perfectionism rules your life, you do a lot of performing and you pretend to be somebody that you're not, a lot subconsciously. And being sensitive is something that I personally shamed myself and was shamed for a long time. And so reading this book really helped me celebrate that and see the benefits and the strengths in that. So it could be a good one to read. And the last foundational book is, of course, Mindset by Dweck. This one really can inspire action around perfectionism. It's about, the fixed mindset, which is essentially the perfectionist mindset, versus the growth mindset that helps you get unstuck. And when you're in the growth mindset, you don't make things mean stuff about you. And so it's a really good foundational book for perfectionists. A lot of times when people are overcoming perfectionism, they want that one thing that changes everything. What's the one answer? And it's disappointing when the answer is actually there's a lot of things you can do that you need to do. There's not just one thing. But if I did have to say that there was one answer, you could only have one answer, it would be getting into a growth mindset. Easier said than done, but it is really the one answer. So the next books are a bit more action-based, and they really gave me perspective on day-to-day life. So the first one is How to Keep House While Drowning by Casey Davis, and it's not a very long book, and it doesn't have a lot of text in it. It is a very simple book, and it is not a revolutionary concept at all, but I think it's something that perfectionists need to be reminded of, because we have this tendency to compare ourselves to other people. We have unrealistically high expectations. And I think that this book for me really shifted the way that I looked at cleaning, and it helped me process a lot of the emotions around cleaning, the shame of not doing it fast enough, that sort of thing. And I also have ADHD, and so I often struggle with consistency and structure. And so the way that this book is structured is so easy to just get the bits of information and leave the rest. And I always find with ADHD, like, we're so motivated by the potential to do things, but we get so stuck in the execution or the initiation stages, and this book targets that so well. So the last recommendation is How to Calm Your Mind by Chris Bailey. He's written a lot of books about productivity over the years, but this one came out a few years ago, and I actually encouraged, or maybe forced, my partner to read it as well, because I just think it's such a good book that really explains how us millennials are wired. We grew up in this age of the evolution of the internet and smartphones, and so there wasn't great boundaries, and we didn't really have a good understanding of how detrimental it can be. And I don't think there's any question that there are bad things about the internet, but I really liked how this book went into like a deeper level on that and understanding, and explains why that is the case. And then it had a lot of good strategies to counteract and mitigate those effects of the internet and just technology and like ease of access to things in general. I also really liked that the author is a bit of a hypocrite, and he says that himself because he's written these productivity books, right? And this book is basically saying, I was wrong about a lot of that, and here's what I actually think. And I think that for a perfectionist, that can be really common, because you have this productivity drive and you delude yourself into thinking that that's the answer. I just need to figure out how to be more productive. And so this book's really relatable, going through that productivity drive to like the burnout to the seeking something more journey that a lot of us go on. The last book I want to share is actually not a recommendation, because it's a book I've just started reading, and it's called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. And why I'm really interested in it is because over the last few years, I've experienced a lot of the medical side of burnout, chronic stress, not the kind of burnout that's, you know, you're stressed for a couple days, you stay up late for a couple days, you work really hard to finish a project and you're exhausted, but the actual burnout that like develops over months and months and years and takes like up to a year to actually recover from. And so now that I'm on the other side of that, I feel like I have the capacity to learn more about it. So I'm kind of hoping that this will help with prevention for the future, because I found burnout was really sneaky. It came on really slow, and by the time I realized anything was wrong, I was already too far into it. So some other ways to address perfectionism this new year would be to create something like a ritual. And a ritual is a routine, but that has meaning behind it. And so it's not just going through the motions, it's connecting to your values, your feelings, and really having a lot of importance behind what you're doing versus just doing a task. And so, for example, if you had a journaling ritual, say, in the summer I did, and I would make my coffee and I would go and sit on the front porch in the sunshine with my journal, and that would be my experience. And so I would focus on the experience of journaling, not just the task of like ticking it off and doing it. Your ritual can be anything. You just need to take time to notice the experience and make it meaningful to you. Another thing would be affirmations, which is basically a way to reprogram your beliefs. You essentially retrain your brain and you start believing that new things are possible. And there are so many different ways to do them. You can write them out, you can say them out loud, you can listen to them. When I've personally done them, I wrote them out 10 times in my journal. And one of the most impactful ones that I did was the affirmation that I'm the kind of person who puts in a full effort. And let me tell you, it was so cringy at first. It felt so pointless. But after a while, I noticed that the voice in the back of my head got on board. And so it would start chipping in while I was doing it, me thinking like, oh, this is ridiculous. And the voice in the back of my head would be like, oh, but yesterday you put in a full effort on this thing. Or, oh yeah, you do put in a full effort because of this example. And it would give you like this evidence in these examples to reinforce this new belief that I was slowly building and working on. And then I also found that right after I did my affirmations, it was so easy to take action right away in alignment with that. So it was easy to put in a full effort on like the next task that I was doing without feeling vulnerable for like trying hard and potentially failing. So affirmations, you can do them so many different ways. You can look them up online. There's so many different ones that are good. And so with that, happy 2026. Whether you're into resolutions or not, I hope that these self-development practices will help you prioritize yourself a little bit more this year, capitalize on that fresh start feeling, and really give you something to focus on. I'm going to link everything I've talked about below. Please contribute in the comments if you have other practices that people could benefit from. If there's future topics that you want me to talk about, just add them into the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of my future videos.